is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello and welcome to The World Today, live from CGTN in London. I'm Jamie Owen. Our top stories. Mario Draghi is sworn in as Italy's Prime Minister. The former boss of the European Central Bank needs to navigate a route out of the pandemic and an economic crisis. Our other headlines, Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he's optimistic on easing lockdown soon, but faces warnings on lifting restrictions too quickly. Germany prepares to tighten border restrictions amid increasing numbers of COVID variants, but the EU's not happy. And President Trump's impeachment trial reaches its climax. We're live in the United States. Mario Draghi has been sworn in as the new Prime Minister of Italy. The former head of the European Central Bank has the support of nearly every major political party in the country. His cabinet is a mix of politicians and technocrats, including a former banker and a physicist. Mario Draghi was given the nickname Super Mario when he was in charge of the European Central Bank, and some analysts have said it'll take a superhero to address the challenges facing Italy. First, politicians are hoping his banking and political expertise will guide Italy out of its worst economic crisis in decades. The pandemic has ravaged the country and its economy shrank by nearly 9% last year. Central to this is the European Union's Pandemic Recovery Fund, worth nearly $1 trillion. Italy is set to be one of the largest recipients, receiving more than $200 billion from this fund. But Italian lawmakers are bitterly divided on how to spend the money, and disagreements led to the collapse of the previous government last month. And, of course, there's the human tragedy of the pandemic itself. Italy has the sixth highest death toll in the world, with more than 90,000 fatalities. Draghi will have to get both the pandemic and the economic consequences under control, or his government will fall victim to the country's notoriously fragile political system. Well, Roberto Dallamonte is Professor of Italian Politics and joins us now live from Florence. Professor, what does Mario Draghi bring to the table that makes him almost unique?
Well, his skills, his reputation, his connections, and the fact that he enjoys a great deal of confidence from the people. I look at survey recently, and over 60% of people interviewed have great confidence in Mario Draghi.
This coalition sees some extraordinary people around the table now, doesn't it? People drawn from diametrically opposing politics. How long is this sustainable? Is it sustainable?
I think so. I think so, because this is a special time. As I say, people have great confidence in Mario Draghi. He has a great reputation. He has put together a clever mix of experts and politicians. So the chances are pretty good that he can make it to some extent. I mean, he will not be able to revolutionize Italy in a short period of time, but he will leave an impact.
The dispute over the pandemic recovery funds sunk the previous Italian government. How can Draghi find unity?
Because of his qualities that I have mentioned, and because politicians, the parties that are supporting him, realize that this is the one chance that Italy has to get the money from the EU in the first place, because the money that you mentioned is not guaranteed. It will arrive if the EU is convinced that it will be put to good use. And Draghi is the guarantee, and the parties that support him know that.
Will Brussels and the wider EU be happy to see him in power?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think they're relieved. Our European partners, the European Commission, they are relieved that the Italian government is in the hands of Super Mario, as you call him.
Italy, like many countries, is facing an economic crisis because of the pandemic. Do you sense there is light at the end of the economic tunnel?
Well, it's kind of, but we still have to see, the other big, you talk about the economic recovery, but before the economic recovery, there has to be a pandemic recovery. We have to get the vaccination plan rolling. And this is actually be the first priority, I think, for the government, for Mr. Draghi. Without putting COVID under control, it'd be difficult to get the economy rolling again. So we'll have to see in the next few weeks how Draghi will approach this issue.
Roberto Delamonte from Florence, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for inviting me.
The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he's optimistic he can announce the easing of some lockdown measures soon in the face of pressure from some within his own party to set a roadmap out of pandemic restrictions. All this comes as changes for international travellers arriving in the UK are set to be enforced to stop the spread of COVID-19. Our correspondent Naweed Jabakil has been following the story for us. Naweed, what steps is the UK government taking to get the country out of lockdown?
Well, it's a multi-pronged approach, really, Jamie. First of all, the lockdown itself, there's evidence that that is working. The restrictions, now a third national lockdown in place since the middle of December. Earlier this week, the reproduction rate falling below 1. That's one attempt. Another is vaccinations, the UK ploughing ahead with that almost world-leading attempt to vaccinate, give 15 million people a first jab of the vaccine by the middle of this month. That's just a few days away. It looks like it's on target to meet that. And then third of all, it's stopping new infections coming into the country. And with regards to that, we're seeing more changes again with international travellers from 33 high-risk countries told to enter hotels and quarantine as of Monday as well. But as we've been speaking to businesses and finding out, there are still plenty of concerns about how effective this policy will be.
The driver's just left it on the table, but it's for room 640.
Old habits die hard. Occupancy at this London hotel is only about 2% of pre-pandemic levels, but manager Charlie Islam Harry is still doing her usual rounds. The St Giles Heathrow is one of many in the UK that have applied to become official quarantine hotels.
With the quarantine package that we do, we put ample of supplies in there, so there's no need for housekeeping to go in and clean the rooms during this period. So everything is there for the guests to use while they're here.
The 411 rooms here are mostly empty, with just a handful of international passengers using some to self-isolate. From the 15th of February, those arriving in the UK from more than 30 high-risk countries will be whisked off to similar locations.
And this is it, the sort of hotel rooms that people will be staying in. This one has all the usual amenities. There's a bathroom with towels, tea and coffee making facilities, and food will be delivered to your door 3 times a day. The downside is that you have to stay indoors pretty much all of the time for 10 days and pay $2,400 for the luxury of doing so.
The UK government says its quarantine programme is among the strictest in the world. It includes mandatory tests on the 2nd and 8th day after people arrive. Those who flout the rules could face up to 10 years in prison, although critics say the guidance is still unclear. For the businesses involved, there's also a financial incentive. Many buildings like this have been sitting empty for months, losing money. For St Giles, which has 9 hotels across the world, the scheme could be vital for cash flow.
Keeping the hotels open will enable us to keep our staff employed. We've been quite lucky here at the St Giles because we have a good team, a lot of cost control. But it's now been almost a year that this has happened, much longer than what we were anticipating.
It's not just hotels suffering, but the wider travel and tourism industry, which contributes $275 billion to the UK economy. Paul Charles is the founder of Quash Quarantine, a campaign urging the government to reconsider the move.
Every second of every day, thousands of dollars are lost in terms of lost bookings, lost confidence, job losses and business failures. And the government needs to, I think, really now understand that many businesses in the travel and airline sector are on a cliff edge.
The World Travel and Tourism Council says the sector in Britain could face complete collapse and that this latest move will increase uncertainty. A policy designed to reduce transmission of COVID is causing a lot of concern here, even before it's gotten off the ground.
The UK government says it's on course to reach 15 million vaccinations by Monday.
Yeah, more than 14 million people have already received the first dose of the jab, and that's really going to be positive news for a government that's faced a lot of criticism over its handling of this pandemic. Just in the past week, the UK's GDP last year hitting the worst in more than 300 years, and a lot of pressure on Boris Johnson from his colleagues now to find a way out of this, which he says will come on the 22nd of February. And just briefly, one other bit of vaccine news out of the country. Clinical trials are set to start this weekend for children for the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. 300 volunteers will be taking part aged 6 to 17, and that could be very important because education's been one sector really impacted by this. We've seen school closures all across the world. If a vaccine is extended to children, then that could keep them in classrooms and out of homes.
Luigi Barkle, thank you very much. From Sunday, Germany will shut its borders with the Czech Republic and much of the Austrian state of Tyrol. Authorities are concerned about the increasing numbers of coronavirus mutations in both countries. The EU Commission has criticised Germany's border measures. Natalie Carney reports now from Munich.
German police are stepping up checks on its southern border with the Austrian state of Tyrol ahead of Sunday's entry ban. Then only German citizens, foreigners with German residency, seasonal agricultural workers and health workers will be allowed to cross into Germany from Tyrol and the Czech Republic. All others will be turned back at these borders, barring exceptional cases that will still be subject to testing and quarantine regulations.
German federal police are present here at the border with Tyrol with reinforcements. We have intensified the measures which are part of cross-border procedures. We are making sure that people who arrive in the country are registering as required, and where appropriate they carry out a compulsory test.
Germany has labeled both Tyrol and the Czech Republic virus mutation areas, the highest level in the risk assessment, after a steep rise in the variant of COVID-19 first identified in South Africa, which health officials believe to be up to 70% more transmissible and generally less affected by current vaccines. German concerns increased after Austria and the Czech Republic announced an easing of lockdown measures scheduled to begin on Monday. Germany has recently been seeing a continual drop in daily infection rates.
Bavaria, which borders both the Czech Republic and Austria, had earlier criticized both countries for jeopardizing Germany's success with their irresponsible opening policies. The Bavarian Premier Markus Söder defended the latest border measures, saying one Ischgl is enough.
Ischgl in Tyrol gained notoriety last March after a COVID-19 breakout in the popular ski resort led to tourists spreading the virus across Europe. The EU Commission has asked Germany to grant exemptions to their border closures. The EU had recently agreed on recommendations for traveling during the pandemic, which Germany's new restrictions don't appear to consider. Yet Berlin has rejected any EU interference in the country's coronavirus protection measures.
We must protect our country from the introduction of further viruses. That is why we decided yesterday to declare the Czech Republic, Tyrol and Slovakia as virus variant areas. This means as a consequence that there will be a ban on transport. Without exception, tests must be carried out before entry and quarantine is compulsory.
With continued regulations in place, Spahn is optimistic that Germany's rate of COVID-19 infections per 100,000 inhabitants could drop to below 60 this weekend. The country is aiming for a 7-day incident of no more than 35 in order to lift its rather restrictive lockdown, which was recently extended to March the 7th. However, in some states, schools will partially reopen from February 22nd, and hairdressers can start work again on March the 1st. Natalie Carney, CGTN, Munich.
France is recommending that anyone previously infected with COVID-19 should only receive one vaccine jab instead of the normal 2 doses. Health officials say people who recover from the virus have some immunity and should be inoculated 3 to 6 months afterwards. France is the first country to issue this advice. Portugal has begun vaccinating its main security forces against coronavirus, with a total of 20,000 military and police officers set to receive the jab. Portugal became one of the world's worst-hit countries last month after a Christmas easing of rules coincided with the appearance of the virus variant first identified in England. Hairdressers have opened in Belgium for the first time in more than 3 months. The government says it recognised how important beauty treatment is to people's mental health. Belgium has one of the worst per capita death rates for coronavirus in the world. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead here on The World Today. Former President Trump's impeachment trial nears its conclusion. We'll be live in Washington.
Don't forget you can sign up to our daily newsletter. We bring you all the top business headlines straight to your inbox. So sign up for free at this address. CGTN. See the difference.
Patient after patient after patient. They take a long time to get better. They're the sickest patients we've ever seen.
It's a race against time because we can all see the threat that our NHS faces, the pressure it's under.
We're dealing with something we knew very little about.
Europe's first 2 epicentres in February have received their first dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine.
Another day, another grim milestone for the UK in its fight against COVID-19. 100,000 people have now lost their lives after contracting the virus.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. Mario Draghi is sworn in as Italy's Prime Minister. The former boss of the European Central Bank now faces navigating a route out of the pandemic and the country's economic crisis. Our other headlines, Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he's optimistic on easing lockdown soon, but faces warnings on lifting restrictions too quickly. Germany prepares to tighten border restrictions amid increasing numbers of COVID variants, but the EU isn't happy. The second impeachment trial of the former US President Donald Trump in the Senate is nearing its conclusion. Trump is charged with incitement of insurrection after his supporters stormed the US Capitol last month. We're live now to Washington and our correspondent Philip Crowther. Philip, can we expect to see a vote on acquittal or conviction today?
No, that's the short answer. Things have changed considerably here. That is what we were speculating on. That was what senators were speculating on, that we would have a quick vote and a quick acquittal for former President Donald Trump. I can tell you that is clearly not going to happen today. Why? Because surprisingly, the House impeachment managers actually called for at least one witness in this trial. Now, there was a vote in the Senate and a vote that the Democratic impeachment managers won with a 5-vote majority, meaning that 5 Republicans actually joined their Democratic colleagues calling for witnesses generally. Now, how many might that be? We don't know at this point, but we do know that the Democrats from the House of Representatives want to call one more than anything, and that is Jamie Herrera Butler. She's a congresswoman from the state of Washington. She says she has contemporaneous knowledge of a phone call between House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy and then President Donald Trump during the insurrection here at the Capitol. A phone call that could show what exactly Donald Trump wanted or did not want to do at the time, whether he was intent on stopping the rioting here or whether he was watching it and actually enjoying it, as impeachment managers on the Democratic side have said. was the case. This is a very significant development in this impeachment trial. First of all, when it comes to the timing, we will not have a vote today. That much is absolutely clear. It also means that Donald Trump is in a little bit more danger because there could be many more witnesses called. Maybe even the vice president, the former vice president in this case. Maybe Minority Leader McCarthy, who was on that phone call with the president. Maybe there'll be another attempt to get the president himself here after he refused initially. This really opens the doors very, very wide indeed. And of course, the defense as well, Donald Trump's lawyers, they might be calling for witnesses now as well. In other words, a lot of uncertainty now, not just for us, but also for the senators themselves who just voted on bringing witnesses in. They don't seem to be entirely sure how this is going to continue from here on in. They essentially need to discuss amongst themselves how this trial is going to proceed from here on in. Most likely there's going to be a short suspension, certainly today, maybe the next few days before they really work out what is going to happen next here.
Philip, given what you say then, I mean, how likely is a conviction for former President Trump?
Well, you know, an acquittal is still very likely, simply because of the makeup of the U.S. Senate. 50 senators on each side, 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans. For a president and for anybody in an impeachment trial like this one to be convicted, you need a 2/3 majority. That means 67 senators would have to vote to convict Donald Trump of incitement, of impeachment. That is still very, very unlikely. What this does is it just lengthens this trial and makes it much more uncertain. An acquittal is still a very, very likely outcome. It's simply not going to come today, and it's most likely going to come after a lot of time spent, maybe just with one witness, but maybe multiple witnesses. We'll just have to wait and see. But essentially, the writing is still on the wall because of the Senate makeup. An acquittal of the former president is simply very likely.
Philip, keep us posted. Thank you very much indeed. Philip Crowther there for us in Washington. In Hungary, thousands of people are losing their jobs as businesses close down after months of COVID-19 restrictions, with many people unable to get government help. Some are resorting to soup kitchens to eat. Mia Alberti reports.
The soup kitchen in central Budapest is a much-needed helping hand for hungry Hungarians, like this single mother of 3 who relies solely on child support.
At the moment, I receive support because of the baby. I don't know if I'll be able to go back to my workplace because of the pandemic. That's still a question.
The owners of this restaurant temporarily turned their business into a soup kitchen back in March. But people kept coming, and now they serve almost 700 meals every Saturday.
Mentally, it's really hard, especially to see the children. You see them being happy about a single piece of orange, and they thank you with tears in their eyes. We receive children so hungry that they open the packages and start eating right here in the street.
The family-run project counts on donations and volunteers. The owner says he hasn't received any help from the government. Hungary's unemployment rate is slowly rising, but remains one of the lowest in the EU. The government says it's a result of its economic measures. But experts argue the official numbers don't reflect reality, since not everyone is accounted for in Hungary's complex social security system.
Overall, there are a lot of methodological glitches regarding this unemployment data, which means that during a pandemic, where basically it is really hard to apply for a job, so practically it means that a lot of people who became unemployed, they are just becoming inactive.
That's the case for this 65-year-old. He lost his job after 40 years as a restaurant chef. He only received unemployment benefits for 3 months.
The amount I received was too much to die of starvation, but too little to survive. I have a partner and we live off her salary, because thank God she still has a job, but I look forward to getting my retirement money. Without her and this soup kitchen, we would be in a very bad situation.
Most of the people here have lost their income because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but many are not eligible to receive government help, making initiatives like these their only lifeline to get by. Mia Alberti, CGTN, in Budapest.
China's box office takings have soared on the first day of the Spring Festival, setting new records. Cinemas raked in $263 million on Friday, with more than 34 million visits. That's according to data from Alibaba Pictures. The numbers have broken domestic records in both revenue and viewership in a single day. Chinese New Year is a time for traditions, with food taking centre stage. Visitors in Beijing have been enjoying the festive foods on offer as families across the country feast. Nicole Ng has the story.
Hongbao, happiness meatballs, and haircuts that could curse your uncle. These are things Chinese people grow up with, things which mightn't make much sense to an outsider looking in. And it's why dozens came together tonight to get a taste of how families will be spending the New Year holidays.
I did not know anything about the foods.
I know that Chinese New Year is a very traditional festival.
The culture, I wanted to try and have a feel for it.
On the menu, dishes from all over the country. Sophia was one of 2 chefs hosting the night.
In buns, prepare the meat.
She explained that though flavours and cooking styles differ from region to region, ingredients remain essentially the same.
Doesn't matter where you are from in China, most every family will cook these similar ingredients and in different ways.
Co-chef Yao helped select the dishes on show tonight based on these ingredients.
We need to have chicken, we need to have meat, we need to have the fish. So it will be maybe chicken cooked in this way and maybe fish cooked in the other way.
Now there's a reason for this. The word fish, for example, sounds like the word for abundance. So our guests learned what to eat to maximize their good fortune. They also got to know some non-food traditions, like lighting firecrackers to scare away bad spirits and not cutting your hair in the first month of the new year.
The idea of family, friendship, and really just a closure of the old year and new year looking ahead.
Of course, many were just excited to eat good food.
The cabbage with peanut sauce, and then also the fish. The fish was that was interesting.
You know, in Germany you have a plate, and you have meat, and you have vegetable, and maybe potatoes, and that's it. So here in China you really have this diversity on the table, so I like that very much.
The Spring Festival may be celebrated slightly differently everywhere, but for all Chinese people, it's the most important time of the year, one which is usually spent with family. And though their families may be far away, these foreigners seem glad to have been brought closer and to feel a bit like family for the night. Nicole Ng, CGTN.
And finally, Amsterdam probably makes you think of bicycles, but what about this? The freezing conditions across Europe have transformed one of the city's famous canals into a skating rink. For the first time in 3 years, people were able to skate across the 17th century waterway. Sluice gates have been closed and boats banned from using some canals to give the ice a better chance of forming. The headlines again. Mario Draghi is sworn in as Italy's Prime Minister. The former boss of the European Central Bank now faces navigating a route out of the pandemic and the country's economic crisis. That's it for The World Today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget we're on smart TV apps like Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire and Android TV, on YouTube and Dailymotion, as well as CGTN.com and the CGTN app. Coming up next, it's The Agenda with Stephen Cole, but from me, goodbye.